Well, how could I not? I'll be honest. It was just a matter of time until this language would appear on this channel. Because I do know a thing or two about language acquisition and having a deep understanding of languages themselves, as well as being a Tolkien fan. By the way, it was actually among the main reasons why I even studied diachronic linguistics in the first place, and it was totally worth it. So, I do see myself in the obligation to teach the fantastic languages of Tolkien, as far as it is possible, that is. We will start with Sindarin, and once we are done, we will see how much we can learn Quenya. It was something I wanted to do a while ago, so I'm very curious to see how much you can actually learn Tolkien languages. Of course, we will also look at the inspiration for Tolkien's languages and see what features, and of what language, have been used. It might be useful for later for other languages on this channel, but for this video, we will start the same way we did with the previous languages so far, by first having a rough linguistic overview, as much as it is possible, and since it is a fantasy language, if I made any mistakes, please let me know, and I will correct myself. So, Sindarin, the grey elven tongue of Beleriand, or Middle-earth, is a historically layered, Celtic-like, northwestern Eldarin language in Tolkien's internal philology. It is acclinative and fusional in parts, strongly shaped by systematic initial consonant mutation, uses vowel alternations, and has a compact verb system with a set of derived participles and periphrastic strategies. Also, scholarly reconstructions kinda vary. So, an authoritative modern reference would be from David Salo and the Adalamion essays. Now, the verb system, aka conjugation. Again, each verb has 5 properties or grammatical categories, beginning with the first, person, typically first, second, and third, and they are marked in a mix of suffixes and independent pronouns, depending on construction. And then number, you have singular and plural. Now, some plural forms also show collective senses via mutation and suffixation. Then we have mood or forms. Now, Sindarin presents a compact set of finite and non-finite forms, so present, past, often 2 historical past forms, future, often periphrastic or auxiliary based, then imperative and participial forms, which would be active or present participle and past or passive participle. You see, many grammars summarize Sindarin verbs in about 10 main forms: stem, infinitive, present, 2 pasts, future, imperative, active participles, past or passive participle, gerund, and verbal noun. Now, how is meaning encoded? First, aspect and voice. They are frequently conveyed by participles and by derived or adapted stems, rather than by a rich synthetic tense system. Periphrastic auxiliaries, aka helping verbs, are used to form future or perfect-like senses in later stages or in literary usage. And stem alternations, as well as vowel changes, especially e-affection, play a very important role in plurals and in some verb forms. Next, the nominal system, declension, plurals, and genitive, beginning with genders and numbers. Now, this one is a little bit more tricky. So, you see, Three genders are reconstructed in the Elvish family: masculine, feminine, and neuter, yet neuters only in early stages. Furthermore, Sindarin common nouns do not have grammatical gender. You see, gender distinction only applies to proper nouns or specific animate nouns, for example those with masculine on or feminine eth endings. And the plural formation is rich, yet irregular. Many nouns make a general plural by vowel mutation, the e affixation to be more precise, and or suffixation. And other plurals use consonant changes or endings. So, how genitive or possessive is expressed is also quite important. You see, word order or genitival apposition and prepositional constructions are common. Sindarin often marks off relations by placing the possessor after the possessed, which means noun plus possessor, and by using prepositions, for example na or n forms, that cause characteristic mutations. Tolkien explicitly notes genitival sequences with the possessor second as a natural Sindarin pattern. Different registers or historical layers allow other strategies, and scholars reconstruct several options rather than a single synthetic genitive case. Now, let me quickly explain what mutations are, the central morphophonological system. Now, initial consonant mutations are systematic changes to the initial consonant of a word, triggered by a preceding morphological or syntactic environment, such as an article, preposition, or specific particle. These changes are a defining typological characteristic of Sindarin and resemble those found in Celtic languages like Welsh. The origin of mutations lies in historical sound changes from primitive Elvish, but they have become grammaticalized, meaning they occur in specific grammatical context regardless of the phonetic environment's history. Now, let's look at the major types. The most widely accepted types of Sindarin consonant mutations are soft mutation or lanination, the most common mutation triggered by a preceding vowel, often the definite article e, aka there, in the singular. This involves a softening of the consonant sound, for example, this. And then nasal mutation, triggered by certain nasal environments, specifically by a historical or present final n in the preceding word. For example, the particle in, which is the in the plural. It often results in a nasal stop or spirant change, for example. And then stop, the occlusive or hard mutation, triggered by a preceding stop consonant, like the preposition ed, which means out of. Its primary effect is to block soft mutation, or in some cases, to change a voiceless stop to a voiced stop, which would be p to b or t to d, and so on. Mixed mutation, which is triggered by certain prepositions or particles, for example, the genitive article n, which means of the. It shares characteristics of both soft and nasal mutations, often resulting in voiced stops for voiceless initials, but no chains for original voice stops. And lastly, other minor or speculative types attested in some analyses include liquid mutation and sibilant mutation, though these are less certain or considered part of other processes by some scholars. And lastly, let's have a look at the interaction with vowel changes. You see, vowel mutations such as e-affixation, are separate phonological phenomena in Sindarin. E-affixation is a historical sound change affecting vowels due to a following ancient e, often serving as a marker for plurals and some verb forms. While both consonant and vowel mutations are important, they have different triggers and effects. Consonant mutations involve initial consonants based on preceding words, while e-affixation affects internal vowels based on historical following sounds. They are generally considered distinct systems. And now to the pronouns and clitics. Clitics are those words that are being attached directly to the preceding words, beginning with the independent pronouns, those that are not being attached. First person singular, ni, plural, man or me. Second person familiar, singular, ki, plural, de. Second person formal, singular, le, plural, de. Third person singular, te, plural, ti. Now to the clitic pronouns, those that are being attached to the word directly. First person singular, plural, or man, with a double M. Second person familiar, ge, plural, h, like the Scottish word loch, or igir. Second person formal, singular, le, or the, like in this, plural, k, or elia. And third person, r, in the singular, and plural, nd, or ends. Now, and there are also other clitics and variations, for example, possessive clitics. For example, el, which means your in the polite singular, or elia, which means your in the plural. Et, which is his, her, or its in the singular, and end, which means their in the plural. And then dative pronouns, and these indicate the recipient of an action. For example, anin, which means to me, and amen, which means to us. And lastly, subject suffixes. These function as subject pronouns, such as the third person singular suffix, which is often not written, or the first person singular suffix n. Next, phonology and morphology. Just a brief practical note. So, Sindarin phonology is characterized by consonant clusters and the sound the and the, as well as h, like in the Scottish word loch. While its morphology relies heavily on vowel mutations, as already explained, and affixes to form plurals and change meaning. Morphology uses prefixes and suffixes, like the suffix nya for possession and the prefix an for comparatives. Phonological stress is typically on the panelled if heavy, or the antepanelled if the panelled is light, so it is similar to the Latin language. Now, to the phonology, we have, again, consonant clusters. Sindarin allows more consonant clusters than Quenya. And then, vowel alternations. Vowel changes are primary way to form plurals and change word meanings, a feature inspired by Welsh. So, now to the specific sounds. As already mentioned, we have the and the, as in think and this, respectively. Then we have the C, which is k. It is hard pronounced. Then we have ch, again, like the Scottish word loch. And we have a final f sound, which is pronounced like the v. The r is trilled, and the l, as well as r, as you can see with an lh and rh, are unvoiced l and r. Now, mutation, as already explained, is basically a consonant change according to rules. For instance, b can become which would be the soft mutation, or which would be the nasal mutation. The stress, so we do not have a pitch accent, we have no tonal language here. The stress falls on the penultimate syllable if it is heavy, which means closed or containing a long vowel or diphthong, or on the antepenultimate syllable if the penult is light, which means not containing a long vowel or diphthong. And then, briefly the mythology, we do have affixes, so prefixes and suffixes are used to alter the meaning of words. For example, adding nya into a noun shows possession. For example, atarinya, which means my father. And then plurals. They are formed primarily through vowel mutation rather than a simple suffix. For example, adan means man in the singular, and edain, which means man in the plural, simply through a vowel change. Now the word order, which actually is more syntax, but I think we can put it here as well. Noun declension and relationships are often shown through word order and prepositions. Since we are on it, sentence structure. The verb to be can actually often be omitted. And questions as well as negation. Now, questions are formed using interrogative pronouns and adverbs, and negative sentences are formed by placing the negative adverb la before the verb. And lastly, comparison. The comparative is formed with the prefix an, and the superlative is formed with the suffix vine. So you see, we do have different kind of affixes here. While the comparative has a prefix, the superlative has a suffix. Now, that all was quite a bit heavy, so let us finish with a look at Tengwa, the writing system, and see all the sounds once again. But one thing before we can start. When it comes to the writing system, Sindarin can actually be written in 3 different ways. In the Latin alphabet, a bit mundane, but still very effective if you just need the word. Then Kirth, which basically means runes. The singular would be Karth, an ancient writing system of the elves, which was later replaced by Tengwar, the third option and the most iconic one. On top of that, Tengwa itself has 2 versions, one with vowel diacritics, which would be the standard mode. That means it will have symbols on top of the consonant, like in Semitic languages, or with separate vowel systems, which would be the mode of Beleriand. Now, with that out of the way, we will use the Tengwa script, if I can find a way to type it on a keyboard that is. Beginning with the consonants, we have T, P, K, D, B, G, V, V, H, V, V, Ng, N, M, Ng, R, V, Y, V, R, R, L, T, S. Multiple times actually. And S, which is a little bit longer. H, U, Y, V, H, Q, T, G. And then the vowels and diphthongs. A, E, I, O, U, Y, A, E, I, O, U, U, I, O, I, E, U, Au. And then we have other symbols. In those symbols, for example, the first one indicates a short vowel. The second one indicates a long vowel. Then the one dot is a comma, the double dot is a period. This S-like symbol is an exclamation mark, and the cursive B is a question mark. Now, in the Sindarin standard mode, the short vowel symbols, tepar, are written on the short vowel, karrier, for example, telko, when they appear at the end of a word. Otherwise, they are written on the consonant that follows them. Long vowels are either written with the long vowel karrier, ara. When a word begins with E followed by another vowel, the E is written with the letter yanda and pronounced y. We already know this, again from the Latin pronunciation. At the end of words, r is written with ore rather than ramen. And lastly, the numerals. Well, starting with the numeral for 0, then 1, which is min, 2, which is tat, 3, which is nel, 4, which is kanat, 5, which is leben, 6, eneng, 7, odok, 8, tolod, 9, neder, 10, pai, 11, mining, 12, wiuk, 13, pai anel, 14, pai a kanat, 15, pai a leben, 16, pai ar enek, 17, pai ar odok, 18, pai a tolod, 19, pai a neder, 20, tapai, 30, nel pai, 40, kanapai, 50, lepai, 60, enepai, 70, odopai, 80, tolopai, 90, nederpai, 100, haran, 1000, menek. Now you can actually build quite a lot of numbers. Anyway, that would be all for the first lesson in Sindarin.